Hi, I'm Laura Eason, showrunner and executive producer of Star's Three Women, which follows the lives of Lena, Sloan, and Maggie as they navigate through their own stories told to us by Gia. Let's take a look at each of them as the show weaves together their narratives. As we dive in on Sloan, at the end of episode 3, there's this really major turning point between her and Richard, where she's been a bit triggered by the presence of her family and how she's kind of minimized in the family dynamic. And she's gone and had this salacious kind of sexual dangerous moment with Will on his boat. And she comes back and Richard wants to know where she is, and she lies to him for the first time. The previous episode shows Sloan and Richard together a lot. They're really shot together in 2 shots in close proximity. Our director, Ekwa Msongi, and Catherine Lutz, our DP, constructed the shots of the end of this scene so beautifully, where we see Sloan and Richard for the first time very isolated in separate door frames. And it really underscores this rift that's beginning between the two of them. And then Sloan turns and there's this beautiful tracking shot where she's walking down the hallway, and at the last moment, she does this thing that's a bit of a signature of the show where she looks directly into camera. And we can really feel in that moment that she's not gonna turn around and tell him the truth, and there's gonna be some trouble ahead. As for Lena, one of the things we talked about a lot with her character is she lives in passion and desire and just wanting that kind of kiss in the sunset moment. And so we find her really almost at her lowest, walking through Kmart in pain, and she turns the corner and sees Princess Bride playing on all these television screens. And she just has that moment where she's transported back to her own true love story with her first love, Aiden, where she did have that moment. She did have that kiss in the sunset. And it really sparks, it ignites for her again the desire that she had that once, and she starts on the path to getting it again. And the other thing that we talk about in the show too is how we as people look to these romantic stories that we can kind of become obsessed with and want to emulate and want to live in. And sometimes, in the case of Lena, it can be something that turns her in a way that leads to a better place or ends up being dark because she gets obsessed with an idea and a fantasy. For Maggie, her episode 104 is a big emotional journey, and I really wanted us to not be connected after spending so much time understanding the trauma that she's been through, feeling sorry for her or her being victimized and our worrying for her, but to really connect with Maggie's bravery, because that to me overshadows almost anything about her. And even though the truth of Maggie's story, as is public record, as a real person, and as is reflected in the book, is really hard, we wanted to have this just celebratory moment where Maggie, because of her bravery, is really soaring. The real Maggie took ice skating lessons, and that was something that we had talked about. And so we came up with the idea of ending the episode with her ice skating. That is this moment of strength and freedom. And we have this beautiful moment where she's kind of getting back out there, and they're sort of reliving this moment from her childhood before anything bad had happened. And her father, he's cheering her on. And even though he is a flawed person and has his own struggles, really demonstrates how fully he is there for Maggie. So I wanted the episode, although it's quite heavy, to end with a real sense of buoyancy and a real underlying of her strength. The center of episode 107 is a scene between Lena and Gia. And Lisa Taddeo and I wrote this episode together. One of the things we're tackling in this scene and is thematic in this season is women owning their own experience and not letting others define what the impact of trauma or certain experiences are. And so in this scene, Lena discloses to Gia for the first time that she has experienced a horrific sexual assault in her past. And Gia interprets that as being the explanation for all of Lena's current choices, why she's chasing Aiden, why she married Ed, why she's put up with a loveless marriage is because she's traumatized from this assault. And Lena really rejects that analysis. No one should be allowed to tell you what your trauma means to you. You get to define that for yourself. And yet, there's this exchange in the friendship between the two of them where they're both sort of right and wrong, because Lena then pushes back and accuses Gia of being overly sensitive about her parents' death because she was an adult when it happened. And again, Gia gets to hold her trauma however she wants to hold her trauma. They each have something to teach the other one. And that's why I think it's beautiful, because they're both holding on to their autonomy of being able to define their experience for themselves. But as with deep friendship, your friends also can see parts of yourself that you can't. It really illuminates the power of that relationship for the two of them. There is no shortage of thrilling scenes portraying the riveting stories of Lena, Gia, Sloane, and Maggie. Follow their beautiful stories in 3 Women, now on Starz.